Pittsburgh, Boston, 1-2 on the rotation. Boston -125 to -130 home favorites in this hockey game. The total is 6, shaded slightly to the under at -120 in this particular matchup. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had been, pretty much rolling through the NHL for a couple of weeks now, have suddenly hit a little bit of a speed bump. They've lost 2 straight games, 6-5 on the weekend against Florida, in a really entertaining game back and forth. That was Tristan Jarry in net that night. He got pulled. Matt Murray came in and finished that game. Then Matt Murray gets hit in the head with a puck in practice. I believe it happened on Monday, and as a result, he suffered a concussion. Is now on the injured list. He's currently, not. There's no really definitive timetable as at the moment in terms of when Matt Murray's going to be back and ready to go again for this Pittsburgh team. So they ended up going with Casey DeSmith in that last game against New Jersey. They had a pretty solid effort. They gave up a lot of shots, 38, a lot of chances, but end up on the short end of a 3-2 loss to the New Jersey Devils. So suddenly Pittsburgh's dropped 2 straight, which hasn't happened for a very long time. This team's been really flipped the switch, as I've talked about for weeks, and starting to look like that, rounding into playoff form. Maybe they're getting interested. Maybe they were a little disinterested early in the season. You're talking about the two-time defending champions that maybe in October and November, playing focused, intense hockey night after night, maybe is not a priority at that stage of the season, coming off another cup victory. But now we're starting to see signs of them really starting to play well. We know they've added to the offense even more with Derek Brassard at the trade deadline. Clearly, that New Jersey game shows it might take a game or two for some of these guys to gel, but Pittsburgh's probably going to be fine. I'm always interested in backing Pittsburgh, when they're off a couple of losses, and I certainly am here. I know Boston at home's very tough. Boston's had a little chink in the armor this week, though. They've lost 4-3 at Toronto, 4-1 loss to Buffalo, a squeak by Carolina in a sloppy game, 4-3 the other night at home. Patrice Bergeron, of course, foot injury is a big-time deal for this hockey team, the way he had been playing. He's going to be out at least another couple of weeks, or saying mid-March, in terms of Bergeron's status with this hockey team. And you look at Pittsburgh, why are they good? They avoid extended losing streaks like most elite teams. Pittsburgh, 19-5 last 24 tries after 2 or more consecutive losses. It's 19-5 on my side at a plus price is enough to get me there with the Pittsburgh Penguins here tonight. A decent bounce back situation. I don't love going against Boston for as good as they've been, but this has not been a great week by any stretch for Boston. They've played a lot of games. They've had a lot of travel. The West Coast travel, Toronto game, Buffalo on the weekend, Carolina game that went to overtime. They extended themselves there. No Bergeron. Pittsburgh, I think, has this game circled now, 2 straight losses. You get Pittsburgh plus 110. Actually, plus 110's out there. That's even better. From a totals perspective, 7-0 to the over. We know Pittsburgh's been an over machine. They finally stayed under the number last game against New Jersey. 7-0 to the over. In the last 7 head-to-head meetings between the Bruins and Penguins. I don't know what it is about these two teams, what they bring out in one another, but what they brought out in one another is one high-scoring game after another, including earlier this season, which was a 6-5 game, which Pittsburgh was victorious in the previous meeting between these two teams. So for that, and it's 6 with, plus 100, plus 105 to boot. In this hockey game. So I got no problem as well jumping in on the over. We talk about Pittsburgh here in this spot. That they've been, just absolutely lighting up the scoreboard as of late. Don't be fooled by the 2 goals they got held down to against New Jersey. They peppered the New Jersey net with shots, could have easily had more. It was just one of those nights. The finish just wasn't quite where it usually is for Pittsburgh around the front of the net. That might change tonight. So for me, I'm going to look Pittsburgh and over the total in this game. Dana Lane, Pittsburgh, Boston. It's a great matchup. Looking forward to it. What do you see happening here tonight in Beantown?
Well, Ian, it's funny. I mean, the last 7 meetings have gone to the over, but if you look at the last 18 meetings in Boston, it's 11-5-2 to the under. I'm not smart enough
Yep.
to figure that out. That's just a trend that popped up for sure. But from a Bruins standpoint, we're certainly going to see what the Bruins are made of against the Penguins, who I continuously have on the top of my power ranking. I still think that when push comes to shove, that they're going to be the team to beat in the East. In fact, as time goes on, I think they're starting to separate themselves. And there's a lot of teams in the East that certainly can't compete. And Boston's won, and Philadelphia, and I think Columbus, if they right the ship, certainly can as well. But the fact of the matter is, there's this extra grit and pedigree that you get with the Penguins, which is the reason why that I have them at number one as the number one team to beat moving into the postseason. But uh, yeah, first things first for the Bruins. I mean, they scored 4 goals against the Carolina Hurricanes, but the fact is that, as you mentioned, that Bergeron is out of the lineup, which is absolutely huge. I've said this a million times, that it's the second game where you start to feel the loss of a major, or the effect of a major loss, which Bergeron certainly is. And having Riley Nash as your number one center, even though he's played extremely well, is a heck of a lot different than what you would have with Bergeron centering that Pasternak and Marchand line. So, for me, that's where it starts. And we know that there's always a trickle down effect. That's why, the higher up in your lines, the worse it is, because it really affects everybody behind them. And certainly with the Bergeron loss, that affects everybody down to their fourth line. I mean, David Krejci being their second line center, he's a nice player, but it just, at times, I don't think he's a guy that can give you big second line minutes, and certainly he's not going to give you what you're looking for offensively. He's so off and on, and so out of your second line, if I'm getting a center and a line that's kind of off and on, that to me is spells inconsistency. And then you got Tommy Wingles now on your third line, is still trying to figure things out as well. So there's a lot of, like I like to say, a lot of moving parts with the Boston Bruins. I just need more production, or I need to feel like I'm going to get more production from that Boston Bruins second line. I don't think I'm going to get that. I think Boston's going to be pretty discombobulated offensively, and I think Rask will at least hold the Pens at bay enough to get this game to squeak under the 6.
All right, under 6 for Dana, Pittsburgh, and Boston. Uh, yeah, I mean, the Bruins to me, uh, Bergeron's always a big loss, always is. There's never a time when you're without a Patrice Bergeron on this team and you say, wow, we can really still not bat an eyelash without him. That's never going to be happen. But especially, lately, if you've been watching Boston play regularly lately, you've seen just how good Patrice Bergeron's been offensively. He's always been good defensive forward. Obviously wins big time faceoffs and key moments and big spots for you. That's now all of a sudden gone from this Bruins team, and coping with it's going to be tough. I mean, I don't know, that was not a very impressive game the other night, even though they won against Carolina in overtime. I mean, and they feasted really on Scott Darling in that game, and we know how he's been. He's been just horrible, really. In terms of qualified goaltenders, I mean, in terms of save percentage and all those stats, he's right near the bottom. So, kudos to Boston. They took advantage of Scott Darling, but going to be a little bit more difficult tonight. We'll see how they do against Pittsburgh. And again, you get Pittsburgh off 2 straight losses, you should get whatever Pittsburgh's best punch, best effort is tonight. Probably we'll see it in this game. Andrew, what do you see here with the Penguins and Bruins? This game's on your card as well. One of the better games on this Thursday night slate. What do you see happening?
Yeah, good morning, guys. And I would say this was not really my favorite Thursday card we've had in the past couple of weeks. So it was a little bit different taking a look and breaking down the card. But yeah, looking at this game, like you mentioned, back-to-back losses for this Penguins team. And you know what? I think it is definitely tough and seeing Matt Murray go down so many times, guys. And I do think it's tough. He's getting that reputation of being injury prone. It's just the way it is. Obviously, a concussion. You can't really knock a guy down for that. But in my eyes, guys, it's one of those opportunities, another chance for someone to step up and kind of prove that the Penguins have that depth that they've been known to have, and it's made them that much more successful. So for me, I'm seeing so many stats that really align for both teams to be successful tonight. And when I see that, even with Bergeron out and players like that, for me, it leans towards the over. And I'm seeing the Penguins right now 5-0 in the last 5 games and playing on 1 day's rest. They're 4-1 in their last 5 games on Thursdays. But more importantly, they're 4-1 in their last 5 versus Atlantic. And funny enough, the Bruins are also 5-0 in the last 5 versus Metropolitan. So for me, I really like what Dana was saying, about that second line production and stuff like that. But I honestly, you look at Rick Nash being that late addition here at the trade deadline for the Bruins and David Krejci together. Something's gonna click. I think something's gonna come together, and I think that closer to playoff time and the more this develops, I think that honestly, it may not even be a bad thing having Bergeron out right now. Obviously, it's not a good thing, but it might be just a little extra time for Rick Nash to kind of find his way into the lineup, make a little name for himself, and kind of make himself known there. Because as we know, obviously Bergeron's so talented and he's a good setup man as well. But let's not forget that Rick Nash is now on this team, and he could probably do some things as well. So looking at these two teams, though, average on the season, Boston 3.23 goals per game, and Pittsburgh 3.25. So neither of these teams are really shy of putting that puck in the back of the net, and I think that they're both comfortable in these track meet style games. The only thing I am kind of uncomfortable with, like I mentioned before, is that Matt Murray is not that starter. And as good as Jari has been and DeSmith has been, I'm not really comfortable against Tuukka Rask. I mean, Rask is the man. He's a good goalie. He's their starter, and he's someone that they rely on heavily, and they will continue to rely on. So that's the only thing that really makes me concerned. But looking at these stats here, the total's gone over in 5 of Boston's last 5 games, and playing in Pittsburgh, the total's gone over in 7 of Boston's last 10 games overall. These teams have been scoring flat out. They've been scoring, and I think that the more and more you keep progressing throughout these patterns in this season, and the way you develop with these different line combinations, guys, I think that it's key that these different guys do get used to playing with each other, and I think that's the biggest key for this. And when I see that 6 guys, I think really the worst thing we're going to get out of that is a push, because as much as I want to think that they could play a tight game, I just think there's too much depth on each team right now. And looking at that top line, Marchand, Riley Nash, and David Pastrnak, I think that those 3 guys together could light the lamp. Something has to spark. Something will happen. I think it'll be a battle between these 2 teams, top lines. And, I always say this, and I know I sound biased. Everyone thinks I'm biased because I'm an East Coaster, but I think that really whoever you put Sidney Crosby on a line with, he's going to make them better. And I think that everyone can probably agree on that a little bit. And you're always noticing that top line getting a little bit shuffled around. So you look at that top line right now, you got Gensel, Crosby, and Brian Rust. But doing that, you leave such room on the other lines, on the second and third line, to have those other players. So what I'm always saying about this Pittsburgh Penguins team, guys, is that they're not going to just kill you from one line. They're going to kill you all the way down their lineup. Second line, they've got Carl Hagelin and Malkin and Patrick Hornquist. And then, of course, their trade line addition down there on the third line center, Derek Brassard, along Connor Sherry and Phil Kessel. So, I mean, that's some talent, guys. I mean, that's 3 lines of straight-up talent that I think can put the puck in the back of the net tonight and make this a pretty entertaining game. And this definitely is one of the games of the night. I think it should be exciting. I just can't picture this game being a low-scoring game, so I'll make it official with the over in 6.
All right, over 6 for Andrew in this game. Yeah, what's good for the Bruins is that in the 4-3 win, now Scott Darling aided. I point that out, but still they got, Rick Nash got on the scoreboard, scored a goal. First goal was a Bruin. Riley Nash, it was a Nash party in the first period of that game, because Riley Nash scores a goal and an assist. Jake DeBrusk with 2 assists, son of Louis DeBrusk, who's actually a television analyst for Sportsnet here in Canada. So one of these situations where they got other guys really to step up, produce offensively, put some points on the board. That's a good sign. You're wondering what the Boston Bruins are going to be like a little bit in terms of that end of the ice, minus a Bergeron, and at least they showed you something positive in that regard against Carolina. Again, we're expecting Jari or DeSmith to be in net for Pittsburgh. I totally understand that. This is not a night where you should expect Matt Murray in between the pipes. He's going to be out, I think, for still a little bit while longer with that concussion. So, but nevertheless, DeSmith's a capable enough goal. Faced 38 shots the other night, and only allowed 3 goals. Did a pretty good job. In fact, Casey DeSmith's numbers, if it's indeed him again, they're pretty good. So I got no qualms about back in Pittsburgh if he's in there. He's got a 2.3 goals, 5 goals against, 925 save percentage. That's good numbers for DeSmith. So I've got no qualms, even though you would think on paper Rask and over DeSmith's a big edge, but you also got the Pittsburgh offense to deal with, and they're a beast to deal with. So I'm going to still go Pittsburgh and the over. Dana's looking under 6. Andrew looking over 6. So everybody involved in Pittsburgh, Boston. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. We don't know where Alex is for this game yet. We don't know where Alex is, period, right now. But Alex for this game, we don't know yet right now what he's looking at.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.